When you think of boss battles in Pokemon, what do you think of? Gym leaders? Champions? Literal bosses? Legendary Pokemon? Maybe just literally anything that isn't a battle against a regular trainer or wild Pokemon? It's a relatively simple question, but for one reason or another, I find a lot of people have different ideas on what a boss battle is in Pokemon. Maybe because it's not like other games that actually label boss battles as boss battles, so you can differentiate them from other things. For some games, a boss battle is just a fight against anything that plays special music and is stronger than your usual enemy encounter. In that case, everything from gym leaders to rivals could be considered boss battles. But on the other hand, a lot of the time games treat boss battles as a mark of progression. You beat the boss, that means you get to move on to the next chapter, or world, or quest line. If we view boss battles that way, then in most games, gym leaders would be the boss battles, with the champion serving as the final boss. Since more often than not, your gym badges are a way to view how far you are into a Pokemon game. Or in the case of other games, you can replace gym leaders with Totem/Titan Pokemon or Team Star bosses. But putting human trainers aside, there's another less common encounter we can consider boss battles, which would of course be legendary Pokemon. Whether you're aiming to defeat or capture a legendary, they always prove strong enough to be considered a boss. Some games even take it a step further and say no, you cannot catch this thing. You need to defeat it because this high-tech doohickey makes it so you can't use Pokeballs. This train of thought is ultimately useless because really, Pokemon doesn't have boss battles in the traditional way. You just have battles, and some are far more important than others, and the games do a fine job of making that clear to you without needing to label them as such. Regardless, I have found it to be interesting to talk about what various people consider to be boss battles. And in actuality, there is one Pokemon game that I find undeniably features boss battles in the truest form, which would of course be Legends Arceus. By the way, a little side note, if it is Arceus, which I think it is, because yes, I understand that Arc phone sounds better than Arse phone. The thing is, in my head, I cannot view it as anything but Arceus, so you're gonna have to bear with me on that one, because, listen, it's ingrained in my brain. I cannot undo it. Anyway, if we say that a boss is something that you fight at the end of a world, and if you beat it, you get to move on to the next world, then that is literally what noble Pokemon are. You fight them at the end of each area's storyline, and beating them unlocks the progression to the next area of the game. Everything you fight along the way, whether it be wielders, wardens, or alpha Pokemon, are much smaller in comparison to the grand battles against noble Pokemon. It's been over a year now since the release of Legends Arceus, and to mark the occasion, I have been replaying it on a new file. And in my replay, I've rediscovered how well done the noble fights really are, and how much they stand out among the other boss battles in Pokemon, similar or not in execution. So let's take a trip to the Hisui region, and talk about why noble Pokemon are the best boss battles the mainline series has ever seen. When the lightning of the space-time rift sends the noble Pokemon into a frenzied state, it's up to you as the player to calm them through battle. I don't think any of us really expected what we ended up getting out of these battles, a mix of real-time combat and turn-based traditional battle segments. When the main method of calming a frenzied noble is throwing bombs at it, stuffed with its favorite offerings, what we got is literally the first ever real-time combat fights in any mainline Pokemon game. Of course, I do say combats in quotation marks because you're not really fighting it, but it's a similar idea, right? Okay, so anyway, Dodging the noble's attacks while tossing bombs is a simple concept, but it was groundbreaking because of how new it was to the series. Plus, the noble Pokemon all having very different movements and attacks to dodge make it interesting enough that it never got tiring. Kleavor, the noble of the Obsidian Fieldlands, kept things simple for an introductory battle. Just charge forward, dodge, and get it to knock into a wall. Lilligant mixed things up by requiring you to dodge through attacks and take advantage of invincibility frames until she tires herself out. Arcanine shrinks your battlefield, giving you less room to work with, and requires you to use your bombs not just to calm it, but also to prevent it from executing a devastating attack. There may only be 5 noble Pokemon, but each of them is so unique, they all stand out so much. And while the bomb phase is great, I haven't even talked about my favorite part of the fights: sending out your Pokemon for a quick assist among all the action. Not only does the music switch get me hyped up, but the remix of the Sinnoh Wild battle theme is so incredibly well placed here. The first time I sent out my Pokemon against Kleavor, I heard this play and I had the biggest smile on my face. And to praise the music even more, the switch into not only the Dialga Palkia theme, and then into the classic Arceus drums is brilliant. The switching of bomb throwing to Pokemon battling is amazing. But what I realized in only my replay of the game is that there's also something really awesome about the fact that you take on the nobles head-on as the player. Obviously, the bomb phases are just you against the noble, of course until you send in your Pokemon. In the past, it's always been your Pokemon against your enemy, but when you fight nobles, it is literally a team effort. Not just a team effort because you command your Pokemon in battle, but a team effort because it takes both of you to calm the noble. You throw the bombs and the Pokemon weakens it. It is literally a team up with your Pokemon. I also gotta throw some love for the message that pops up when you throw in your Pokemon. Here's your chance. Show Kleavor your power. This isn't just about weakening the noble. It's also about showing it your strength and earning its respect over the course of the fight. By the end of the battle, I like to think that the noble is calmed down, not just because of the effect of the bombs, but also from you proving your worthiness in battle. That is, of course, unless you don't ever throw in your Pokemon, and instead choose to strictly throw bombs. I know some people who went the entire game without ever tossing in a Mon, and I think that is crazy. I have huge respect for anyone who had the endurance to do that, but at the same time, it's too bad that you'd miss out on the awesome music shift in the process. But still, anyone with the patience to only throw bombs is incredible, especially for the Electrode fight, because that guy does not give you much room at all to toss bombs outside of being stunned. And really the same goes to Avalugg. Outside of the gameplay aspects nobles have to offer, there's also some pretty great story elements surrounding all of them. Since your ultimate goal in each area is to quell the frenzied noble, everything you do prior to that is building up to that fight, and a lot of the time that involves trying to convince the respective clans that quelling the noble is the best thing to do. A common belief is that, since the frenzied state is caused by the lightning from the space-time rift, the nobles are being blessed by Sinnoh itself with immense power. And one of my favorite things is how the look of the nobles reflects such a belief. The blinding, glimmering golden light that frenzied nobles are covered in gives off a holy, divine sparkle. But what I find even cooler is the golden beams of light that surround the noble during battle. They look imposing, they look ethereal. It's no wonder the clan wardens mistake it for a blessing from Sinnoh, but usually convincing the wardens that the frenzied Pokemon are A, risk to people and Pokemon getting hurt, and B, clearly in a state of struggle and pain is enough to have them accept you tossing bombs at it. The act of tossing bombs itself is sweet too. You aren't trying to hurt or kill the noble, you just want it to calm down. And what better way than tossing its favorite snacks and offerings right at its face to remind it of things that make it happy. You aren't fighting because the noble is evil, you're helping it get back to its regular self so it won't be a danger to itself or others. And of course, this doesn't even need mentioning, but this act of kindness toward the noble is amplified during the events of the Cobalt Coastland story. I'm sure we all felt a much greater connection to Arcanine than we did the other nobles, which made the frenzied state that much harder to witness, but on the other hand, much more relieving to quell. The music that always plays after quelling a noble, which is called Conflict Resolved, is a perfect mood setter for the scenes that always follow. The poor frenzied noble is calmed and safe again, and everyone involved learns something along the way as well. Well, not Melly. He's got the spirit, he's just a little confused, but that's okay. Of course, if you've played Legends Arceus, you know that this style of boss battle is not strictly reserved for noble Pokemon, since you also get the same style of action-to-Pokemon battle, switch-up fights against Dialga, Palkia, and Arceus. These are all just as incredible fights, but there isn't really much to say about them that's different from the noble battles. Just that the Arceus battle is probably one of the hardest battles in the series, and I love it for that. And that's it! I seriously cannot believe it's only been a year since this game came out, because it simultaneously feels like it's been more than a year and less than a year. I guess two huge mainline games releasing in the same year just kind of messes up your sense of time. And space. Just throwing that out there, so I don't have the Pearl clan at my back for only talking about time. Anyway, I am really holding out hope for another Legends game, if not just so we can get more of these incredible noble battle fights. There is so much more they can explore with this innovative style of boss fights, and I really hope they do it again. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening to me, and I will see you all again soon!